there is no question that John McCain has served our nation quite literally to the point of personal sacrifice, and that he, for many years, served us capably in Washington, D.C. But after 28 years there, the last 24 of those years in the United States Senate, it will be time on August 24th to say, John, thank you for your service. Welcome home. We are sending a consistent conservative to the United States Senate in lieu of a convenient conservative. I thank you for your time and attention. I would be very happy to open up for questions. Yes, let me turn to this gentleman right here. Are there guidelines, Carol? Or can okay, great. Yes, sir, please.
We now know it is mathematically impossible to pay for Social Security and Medicare for the next 20 years, probably for the next 10. Mathematical certitude that we cannot do it. Are we at the point yet where a senatorial candidate is willing to admit that fact? And would you agree that we must cut Social Security and Medicare benefits?
I am willing to say that we must have entitlement reform, and let me answer the question by offering some sage advice from my old congressional colleague, J.C. Watts. J.C. used to say to me, J.D., there are two ways to offer the same message. You could say, and I'm making very real, this is for illustrative purposes only, I am not engaged in eye contact with any person in this room. That's how sensitive this kind of message is. You could say, woman, you got a face that would stop a clock. Or you can say, darling, when I gaze into your eyes, time stands still. You ask a very important question. Scripture shows us that wisdom and discernment is part of the best way to answer the question. Let me put it to you this way. It is obvious actuarially and demographically that we must have meaningful entitlement reform. What that will entail for my generation, and this is one of the little secrets people don't recall, the Reagan-O'Neill Bipartisan Social Security Commission of the early 1980s has already raised the retirement age for my generation. But understand this too, just one piece of errata, this factoid crossed my desk. I cannot vouch for it, but I believe it to be correct. More American men were born in the year of my birth, 1958, than any other year in our history. It was the very apogee of the baby boom. To different generations come different obligations. There are those who have gone before, who have fought the wars. As we saw in this room here, there are some literally with their progeny today standing in the breach. To generations on either side, it was a destiny to literally fight the wars. To our generation, it is a destiny to mind the store, to put our fiscal house in order. Now, my old congressional colleague, Paul Ryan of Wisconsin, with whom I served on the Ways and Means Committee, who is currently the ranking Republican on the Budget Committee, he has started taking a complete look at entitlement reform. I think there are many good ideas there, but one idea I know with certitude. Whatever my retirement age was raised to in the Reagan-O'Neill bipartisan agreement, it will rise yet again, because demographically and realistically, that is one of the tools in our financial kit to deal with entitlement reform. There's something else we have to deal with as well. For the younger generations, and you may have heard our friend the pollster, Frank Luntz, who does some interesting polling, not always rating politicians. He'll go out and talk to people, to different generations, about how they feel about public policy. And a few years ago, he made quite a big splash asking, which possibility is greater for Generation X and Y? Which possibility is greater, young Americans, that there is extraterrestrial life or that you will see Social Security benefits? The overwhelming majority said we'll see aliens from another planet before we see a Social Security check. And we can chuckle with the kind of grim analysis that the younger generations instinctively offer, but here is the key to the change that must take place. And I would offer you this analogy. Way back in the late 1970s, when I was pursuing my bachelor's degree at North Carolina State, I dared to take an elementary course in computer science. And I did not complete it. I dropped it because part of the vagaries were the notion of sitting at these old terminals with punch keys, gathering all these cards together, then sending those cards to what was called a supercomputer that IBM had provided to North Carolina State and the University of North Carolina and Duke University at the Research Triangle part, and you would send it like the old days of sending your film to Kodak. And woe if there were some error in the punch card. The entire program went kerflooey. When you stop and think about it, that's really the left's approach to government. A huge command and control structure with a bureaucracy that quite often gets things wrong and just everything goes kerflooey. But what changed for us in the information age? The advent of the personal computer. That is why for our children and for younger generations, when it comes to entitlements, when it comes to Social Security especially, there must be personal accounts, not dictated by a bureaucracy in Washington, D.C., but just as form follows function. Just as we have seen with the information age, so too must we usher in individuality and personal preference when it comes to entitlements. It is a vexing question. It doesn't stop at entitlements either. The so-called discretionary spending has become increasingly indiscreet, to put it mildly. The incredibly misnamed stimulus package from this new president, over $800 billion, less than half of that has been spent. You may have heard me in the debates the other night. The very first thing that should happen is there should be a clamp down on all those unspent funds, and they should be put directly into debt relief. We are going to have to get our house in order, both in terms of discretionary spending and in terms of entitlements. Let me go back here to Wes. Yes, sir.
My biggest fear right now is the nationalizing of the banks. Closing down the banks, you have FDIC going bankrupt, rioting in this country, foreign troops in this country, firing American citizens. Could this happen in the near future?
Wes, you lay out a chilling scenario of the possibilities you offer. The most likely is the notion of financial ruination. First, through government fiscal policies. It's not even good to call them fiscal policies. We should call it government fiscal irresponsibility. And efforts under the rubric of reform. And sadly today, Mr. Obama signed the so-called financial reform bill. As I said the other night in the debate, it is akin to handing a book of matches and a can of gasoline to a pyromaniac. It ensures that there will be more bailouts. It grows government, and it sets up regulation on small business that is, at the very least, vexing and incredibly expensive, that likewise will be a drag on our economy. I don't necessarily believe in a scenario involving foreign troops in this nation, but I do know that the foreign contagion of default that has been experienced in Greece